This book was hurriedly written as the Griffith Prize essay as early as 1914, and it is published in a great hurry on the eve of my departure for England. Had it not been for the encouragement of the Honourable Chief Justice Sir Asutosh Mukherjee, the great patron of learning, this essay would never have been published. I have tried to give here an account of the yoga system of thought as contained in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, as interpreted by Vyasa, Vachaspati, and Vijnana Bhikshu, with occasional references to the views of other systems. My work, Yoga Philosophy in Relation to Other Indian Systems of Thought, which I hope will be published shortly by the University of Calcutta, is a more advanced and comprehensive work than the present attempt. But since it may yet take some time before that book is published, I do not much hesitate to publish this essay. This is my earliest attempt on Indian philosophy, and no one probably is more conscious of its defects as myself. As I had to stay far away from Calcutta at Chittagong, and as I had no time in my hands owing to my departure to England, I do very much regret that I could not properly supervise the work of its printing. Many errors of printing have consequently escaped. It is, however, hoped that the errors may not be such that they will inconvenience the reader much. So little work has up till now been done in this field of Indian philosophy, that in spite of its many defects, the author has some excuse in publishing it. The author will consider all his labors rewarded if this essay is found to be of any use in any quarter. It may seem convenient that before entering into the details of the work, I should give a brief outline of the yoga system of Patanjali at the very beginning of the work, which I hope may be of some use to the beginners. However dogmatic a system of philosophical inquiry may appear to us, it must have been preceded by a criticism of the observed facts of knowledge. The details of the criticism and the processes of self-argumentation by which the thinker arrived at his theory of the universe might indeed be suppressed as being relatively unimportant, but a thoughtful reader would detect them as lying in the background behind the shadow of the general speculations. But at the same time setting them off before our view. An Aristotle or a Patanjali may not make any direct mention of the arguments which led them to a dogmatic assertion of their theories, but for a reader who intends to understand them thoroughly, it is absolutely necessary that he should read them in the light as far as possible of the inferred presuppositions and inner arguments of their minds. It is in this way alone that he can put himself in the same line of thinking with the thinker he is willing to follow and can grasp him to the fullest extent. In offering this short study of the Patanjali of metaphysics, I shall therefore try to supplement it with such of my inferences of the presuppositions of Patanjali's mind, which I think will add to the clearness of the exposition of his views. Though I am fully alive to the difficulties of making such inferences about a philosopher whose psychological, social, religious, and moral environment differed so widely from ours. An inquiry into the relations of the mental phenomena to the physical has sometimes given the first start to philosophy. The relation of mind to matter is such an important problem of philosophy that the existing philosophical systems may roughly be classified according to the relative importance that has been attached to mind or to matter. There have been chemical, mechanical, and biological conceptions which have ignored mind as a separate entity and have dogmatically affirmed it to be the product of matter only. There have been theories on the other extreme which have dispensed with matter altogether and have boldly affirmed that matter as such has no reality at all, and that thought is the only thing which can be called real in the highest sense. All matter as such is non-being or maya or avidya. There have been nihilists like Sunyavadi Buddhists who have gone so far as to assert that none of them exists, neither the matter nor the mind. There have been some who asserted that matter was only thought externalized, some who regarded the principle of matter as the unknowable thing in itself, some who regarded them as separate independent entities held within a higher reality called God, or as two of his attributes only. and some who regarded their difference as being only one of grades of intelligence, one merging slowly and imperceptibly into the other and held together and conquered with each other by pre-established harmony. Underlying the metaphysics of Patanjali also we find an acute analysis of matter and thought. He regarded matter on one hand, mind, the senses, and ego on the other, to be nothing more than two different kinds of modifications of one primal cause, the Prakriti. But he distinguished from them a self-intelligent principle which he called Purusha, or the spirit. By the highest generalization possible, he discovered that what we call matter consisted only of three primal qualities, or rather substantive entities, which he called the sattva, or the intelligent stuff, rajas, or energy, and tamas, the factor of obstruction, or mass, or inertia. It is indeed extremely difficult to make a true conception of the nature of these three qualities, or gunas, as he called them, when we consider that these are the only three elements which are regarded as forming the composition of all phenomena, mental or physical. In order to comprehend them rightly, it will be necessary to grasp thoroughly the exact relation between the mental and the physical. What are the real points of agreement between the two? How can the same elements be said to behave in one case as the conceiver and in the other case as the conceived? Thus, Vachaspati says, the qualities, gunas, appear as possessing two forms, viz., the determiner or the perceiver, and the perceived or the determined. In the aspect as the determined or the perceived, the gunas evolve themselves as the five infra-atomic potentials, the five gross elements and their compounds. In the aspect as a perceiver or determiner, they form the modifications as the ego and the senses. It is interesting to notice here the two words used by Vachaspati in characterizing the twofold aspect of the gunas, viz., their nature as the determiner or the perceiver, and their nature as being determined or perceived. The elements which compose the phenomena of the objects of perception are the same as those which form the phenomena of the perceiving. Their only distinction is that one is determined and the other is the determiner. Aristotle, Leibniz, Hegel, all of them asserted in their own ways that there was no intrinsic difference between the so-called mental and the physical. With Aristotle, as possibility of form, matter is reason in the process of becoming. The antithesis between idea and the world of sense is at least in principle, or potentially surmounted so far as it is in one single being, but only on different stages that exhibits itself in both, in matter as well as in form. The theory of causation, as explained by him by the simile of the raw material and the finished article, is almost the same as has been given by Vijnana Bhikshu in his commentary on the system of Sankhya. The causal action consists of the activity that manifests the effect, karya, in the present moment, just as the image already existing in the stone is only manifested by the activity of the statuary. Thus, it seems that Aristotle's doctrine has some similarity with the Patanjala Sankhya doctrine, but their difference much outweighs the similarity. For with Aristotle, potentiality and actuality are only relative terms. What is potential with reference to one thing is actual with reference to another. All things are arranged in a state of becoming higher and higher, and in this way, thought All things are arranged in a state of becoming higher and higher, and in this way, thought is also regarded as the actual, or the form, and the other is called the potential or matter. But with Patanjali, this is not the case. With him, sattva, rajas, and tamas are substantive entities which compose the reality of the mental and the physical. The mental and the physical represent two different orders of modifications, and one is not in any way the actuality of the other. Potentialities and actualities have place in this system, but only in this sense that they are the absolute potentialities and actualities, as they conjointly form the manifold without, by their varying combinations as well as all the diverse internal functions, faculties, and phenomena. They are in themselves the absolute potentiality of all things, mental and physical. Thus, Vyasa, in describing the nature of the knowable, writes, "The nature of the knowable is now described. The knowable, consisting of the objects of enjoyment and liberation, as the gross elements and the perceptive senses, is characterized by three essential traits: illumination, energy, and inertia. The sattva is of the nature of illumination. Rajas is of the nature of energy. Inertia, tamas, is of the nature of inactivity. The guna entities with the above characteristics are capable of being modified by mutual influence on one another, by their proximity. They are evolving. They have the characteristics of conjunction and separation. They manifest forms by one lending support to the others by proximity. None of these loses its distinct power into those of the others, even though any one of them may exist as the principal factor of a phenomenon, with the others as subsidiary thereto. The gunas forming the three classes of substantive entities manifest themselves as such by their similar kinds of powers. When any one of them plays the role of the principal factor of any phenomenon, the others also show their presence in close contact. Their existence as subsidiary energies of the principal factor is inferred by their distinct and independent functioning, even though it be as subsidiary qualities. It may be argued that in Aristotle also we find that potentiality and actuality exist together in various proportions in all things. But the fundamental distinction which must be noted here is this, that in Aristotle's form only exists in matter. That in Aristotle form only exists in matter as its end or goal towards which it is striving, and the manifold nature of the universe only shows the different stages of matter and form as being overcome by each other. But in the three gunas, none of them can be held as the goal of the others. All of them are equally important, and the very various nature of the manifold represents only the different combinations of these gunas as substantive entities. In any combination, one of the gunas may be more predominant than the others, but the other gunas are also present there and do their functions in their own way. No one of them is more important than the other, but they serve conjointly one common purpose: the experiences and the liberation of the Purusha or spirit. They are always uniting, separating, and reuniting again, and there is neither beginning nor end of this. They have no purpose of theirs to serve, but they all are always evolving, ever from a relatively less differentiated, less determinate, less coherent whole to a relatively more differentiated, more determinate, more coherent whole. For the experiences and the liberation of the Purusha, the spirit, when in a state of equilibrium, they cannot serve the purpose of the Purusha. So that state of the gunas is not for the sake of the Purusha. It is its own independent, eternal state. All the other three stages of evolution, viz., the sign, unspecialized, and specialized, have been caused for the sake of the Purusha. Thus, Vyasa writes, the objects of the Purusha are no cause of the noumenal states. That is to say, the fulfillment of the objects of the Purusha is not the cause which brings about the manifestation of the noumenal state in the beginning. The fulfillment of the objects of the Purusha is not therefore the reason of the existence of that ultimate cause, for the reason that it is not brought into existence by the need of the fulfillment of the Purusha's objects. It is said to be eternal. As to the three specialized states, the fulfillment of the objects of the Purusha becomes the cause of their manifestation in the beginning. The fulfillment of the objects of the Purusha is not therefore the reason of the existence of the cause, for the reason that it is not brought into existence by the Purusha's objects. It is said to be eternal. Also, as to the three specialized states, the fulfillment of the objects of the Purusha becomes the cause of their manifestation in the beginning. And because these objects of the Purusha become the cause of their manifestation, they are to be said non-eternal. Vachaspati again says, the fulfillment of the objects of the Purusha could be said to be the cause of the noumenal state, if that state could bring about the fulfillment of the objects of the Purusha, such as the enjoyment of sound, etc., or manifest the discrimination of the distinction between true self and other phenomena. If, however, it did that, it could not be a state of equilibrium. This state is called the Prakriti, which may in some sense be loosely compared with the pure being of Hegel. For it is like that, the beginning, the simple, indeterminate, unmediated, and undetermined. It does neither exist nor does not exist, but it is the principium of almost all existence. Thus Vyasa describes it as the state which neither is nor is not, that in which it exists and yet does not, that in which there is no non-existence, the unmanifested, the noumenon, literally without any manifested indication, the background of all.